4, 3. Well, it's a good evening in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. It's 7 o'clock here in Australia, and it's 9 o'clock in the morning where our guest and our co-host are currently cohabitating. And without further ado, I'll pass you over to Andrena.
Good morning, good day, and welcome to everybody who's listening to the show. And today it's the 2nd of February 2023. It's a number 2 day, swiftly moving along. Today it is my great pleasure to welcome Lilias Ahmeira from UK, which I came across, I think we were talking about 10, 12 years ago. We had the pleasure of meeting, and our paths are sort of intertwined along the way, but they've really come back together again through health-wise. So without further ado, Lilias has an amazing story to share with her health, her family, her all the work that she's done, traveling all around the world, and so much more to share. I don't know where to start, Lilias. So I think the best thing would be to start is welcome and share where you were born and all the different steps that have led you to where you are now.
Goodness, well, good morning and good evening to everybody wherever in the world you are today. It is an absolute pleasure to be on here. Thank you, Andrena, for inviting me. It's an enormous privilege. I never imagined, 10 or 12 years ago when we met that you'd have me on your radio show. So thank you for that. I was born in Plymouth, in the southwest of the United Kingdom, and I was brought up in the country, surrounded by dogs and cats and ponies and all sorts of lovely things. I had a very privileged upbringing. Whoa, let me put that on side. Shows it's live. Then I left home at about 17, 18. My mum died when I was 15. So I pretty much, I managed to scrape through with some O-levels and decided that, then fell to pieces afterwards. So A-levels were not for me. And I've basically come through the school of knocks. I don't have a single major qualification to my name that anybody would recognize, but I have managed to travel the world and lecture to some very eminent scientific individuals of the things that I've learned, but I'll come on to that, later. But don't, for the younger people who are listening, don't let, as well as it's amazing to have qualifications, but if you are determined to do something, you can do it without them, and you can achieve anything you set your mind to. And that has always been my philosophy. I will go over things, round things, under things, or through things to get where I'm aiming to go. You have to have a vision and you have to have a passion. So don't let the fact. So I've had no A-levels. I didn't go to university. My mother would be turning in her grave, but I managed to make up for it in other ways. So I got a bit lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do in my 20s. And I got a backpack, as most people do. I spent a lovely time in Australia. I spent about a year there. But I traveled over a 2.5-year period through 32 third world countries. The main cities were not for me. I like to go down the back streets. I like to look at what's going on in the world, how the real people live. I slept in hay barns. I slept in the most extraordinary places. I was in Bolivia during the time when it was under martial law. I went through Ethiopia during the time when Bob Geldof was doing his amazing charitable work, and we saw huge trucks with Live Aid written on them. And because it was under martial law, people was, there were lots of military people, and they shadowed you everywhere. And we'd go, well, what do you think about the famine? You go, there is no famine. We go, mate, we've just seen, 6 aid trucks filled to the gunnels with Live Aid written on it. No, there is no famine here. And it was extraordinary seeing this disconnect. As international travelers, you knew what was going on in the world from all the radio that we had at the time, because we didn't have all of these lovely, screens and things. We had TV, and I think that was about it. And I think we had we listened to things on radio cassette and stuff like that. We heard things in the news. So this disconnect was very interesting. And when I was in Bolivia, the shining lights were going on, and blowing things up in La Paz, and everybody was saying it's so dangerous being there, and I'm wandering around La Paz in a pair of shorts and with my girlfriends and various other people and going, no, there's nothing to see here. So you learned how the news internationally was completely different to what was going on the streets. So my international travels in places that very sadly you can't travel through now brought a whole different understanding to the world to what we perhaps have today. And then I got back to London after 2.5 years, braided, looking like Bo Derek with 180 plaits with beads in my hair at the end. And, people going, gosh, this isn't the girl that left here. She's quite different. And I still was a bit lost and didn't know what to do. But I've always been a bit, not one of the herd would be a good way to describe me. I could feel things, see things. I didn't understand it. And people said to me, Lilias, I think you need to go to the College of Psychic Studies. And I kind of go, well, what's that? And ended up with the most amazing teacher. His name was Robin Winbo. And he said to me in the first 3 weeks of my being there, he said, you're going to teach here one day. And I'm going, I don't even know what I'm doing. And sure enough, I ended up taking a few classes there, which was an immense privilege. But then I started to understand I had the ability to read energy, to feel it. And one day my teacher put a magnet in my hand and said, we're going to measure the energy of these things. And he put it in my hand. And I went, oh, I can feel that. And he said, well, turn it over. And I turned the magnet over and wow, the energy was different. So I could actually detect the difference between the two poles. And that led me on a completely different trajectory because I was so fascinated by this that I said to him, well, how do they heal people? And he said, oh, I don't know, but I'll give you the name of the person who's given me the magnet for today's lesson. And so I contacted her, and long story short, I ended up studying with her and being the first accredited magnet therapist in the UK. And this has been a journey in that I'm one of the people who finds new things and launches them, and everybody laughs at me. So that was the first one. Everybody thought I was barking mad. They think I'm mad anyway. But what is it that Lilias is on right now? And so it was magnets, and they just went, you've really lost it, hon, this time. You'll get over it, but they're there. Well, magnet therapy turned into being, a billion-dollar industry and is huge today. And there are some very big names out there. The research has, exploded. And if you think about an MRI, which we all want to have if we've got something serious going on, what is that? That is magnetic resonating imaging. So magnets is where my healing journey started. And it took going to the College of Psychic Studies for me to understand what was going on. And from that, I went into electronic gem therapy and thought field therapy, which actually was the original EMF. And the tapping therapy, which people use. And the thought field therapy was the original guy. And then one of his proteges decided that he wanted to make it more available to people and put it out on lots of discs. So the tapping therapy, as people know it, is, I can't remember what it's called now.
Emotional freedom technique.
Right, yeah, emotional freedom technique. And so that became new. But again, when I'm going around tapping and doing things, we're going, Lilias, what are you doing? So it's kind of like, yeah, but it's, now it's mainstream and everybody is. But I was, one of the first people, and it's kind of like I have this sort of radar when the hairs on the back of my neck go up and everything goes, whoa, and I go, okay, I've got a live. This is good. This is good. I really need to pay attention to this. And then I do it, and they all laugh at me. But now people are going, if Lilias is doing it, we need to pay attention because I've learned my stripes now, and I've done it too many times, and it's interesting. But then, so that sort of takes me up into my mid 20s, and I get married, which was wonderful. And number 2 son comes along, and there's something seriously wrong. And all the other kids are having meetings with their own milestones, but mine is doing something. He's just not with us. And he's screaming and shouting and won't eat foods and banging his head against a brick wall. So his forehead is swollen. And I have no idea what the hell's going on. And I don't know what to do. And nobody seems to come up with any answers. And after 2 years, go to a pediatrician on Harley Street and go, something's seriously wrong here. What, give me some direction. And after observing him for a whole hour, putting things in straight lines and putting things in towers and regulating everything she put on the floor, she turned around and told me that he was severely autistic. He would never go to normal school. He would never amount to anything. And it's probably best, if I wanted to have a proper family, that I should go home and have another child. As you can imagine, by the little bit the listeners have listened to now, that went down like a lead balloon. The language was somewhat blue. She was told in no uncertain terms that you should not judge a child that is 2 and then give me his life, what his life's going to be like. I was not willing to accept that, and I did not think it was appropriate what she said. And I was fuming, absolutely fuming, incandescent with rage that she could judge something so flippantly and basically tell me to go and have another child. So that was a very, very big turning point in my life. So I literally marched out of there and went, okay, I've got a new job to do. I need to go and study with some of the best doctors and the best scientists and the best people in the world I can find, because quite clearly the woman I've just spoken to is not going to help me. And that is exactly what I did. Right. And everything that I have learned today, I have shared with anybody who wants to listen to me. I have been a helpline to thousands of parents with autistic children and children who have other issues. And I am passionate about not only supporting the children and finding solutions for them, because every child is different. It's not you've got this problem, therefore X, Y, Z works. It's you have an individual here with a unique set of complex problems that need to be addressed in a way that body's chemistry works. And I'm not a scientist, but we can measure some of these things and look at what happens. And so the other thing that I am very passionate about here is it's the parents. They have a journey too. They're excited that they're pregnant, and then all the grannies and the grandpas come around, and all the aunts and the sisters and all of that. This child is born, and then things start to change, and they then start to go, well, the child just needs disciplining, or you're just imagining it. It's not this bad, and slowly, the parents become ostracized. The immediate family don't want to be involved. They don't want to support and give that mother a break, give her an afternoon off to go shopping, a weekend off to go and have a lovely time with the husband. Most parents of autistic children end up getting divorced because of the pressure of it. They end up having to become experts overnight in parasites, bacteria, viruses, in legal matters, in council matters. They have to fight tooth and nail for everything that they think they deserve, or the help or the support that they need. And it's not appropriate. And their whole life changes. The child, there's like a bereavement for the child that they thought they were going to have. What ends up happening is the child with its difficulties will turn those parents into the most extraordinary individuals, because they will end up doing things they never dreamt they could or would do. They've suddenly got to become specialists in subjects they had absolutely no interest in. And they start to meet a whole different set of people. And their life trajectory changes. So while the children are massively important and we want to give them the best possibility of leading the best life that they can, we also need to support the parents. And years ago, somebody asked me to present a lecture in Germany about autism. I said, I'm really tired of talking about autism. What I'd like to talk about is the parents. And I spent a whole time, and now that's on YouTube and you can see it. It's called An Autism Parent's Journey. And I would love every single parent of an autistic child to look at that when you're feeling in a strong place, because it's deliberately hard hitting, because I wanted it to go home. And I would love that video to be placed in the hands of every Senko, doctor, legal person, counsel person, so that they understand what these parents have to go through on a day-to-day basis to support their child. And it's not just the children, it's the siblings who often feel ostracized. The dads feel like a glorified wallet. They can't, they don't get a look and they don't understand what's going on. They're desperately trying to earn double the money they ever did, because the amount of money it costs to bring up the therapy and all of that is massive. So the whole dynamic is dysfunctional, and it needs an awful lot of support. And most
You stop there. You stop there. What's it called? Autism parent. What?
An autism parent's journey, and it's on my Lilias Ahmeira Holistic Practitioner YouTube channel.
Autism parents with an S, is it?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, carry on. Sorry.
And so that whole piece of my life changed everything. And I have gone on from, I have literally spent my whole life looking at what can make a difference in these kids' lives. And it's taken me from, I mean, my son has done lots of electronic gem therapy. We've done the tapping stuff. The next thing I got involved with is Dr. Klinghardt, who's an extraordinary doctor that many people have been will be aware of. I worked and studied with him for about 15 years. His work is amazing, and that really put me on the map for people and parents with autism and Lyme disease and chronic fatigue and all of the deep autoimmune disorders that we worked with a lot. And then, so many things just come and go that you just think this is the next thing. And every step along the way, I've been able to progress him. And to long story short, he is now 23 years of age. He is 6'2". I was immensely proud because last year he graduated from college. He did go to a normal kindergarten with support. He did go to a normal school with support. He went to a vocational college, and he's gone on to a college later on now, where it was specific to people who had special needs, and he graduated from that. He can take a bus, he can go shopping, he can cook breakfast for himself. You can have a normal conversation with him. It generally will go in the direction of dinosaurs. But, this guy has something to offer in this world and is quite capable of, we're at the moment looking for him to have a full-time job. And I have no doubt to achieve that. So it's a long, long place from the original go home and have another child. We have a child here who's got a young man now who has a great deal to offer this world, is very kind, very gentle. He's my greatest teacher. And I think these kids are our teachers because they show us how to lead a more conscious life. They're not going to go and rob a bank. They're not going to go and rape somebody. They are pure love on the most extraordinary level. And he adds so much to my life, as do my other two boys, which I'm very proud of. But it's amazing how one thing can change your life so hugely. And that led me into one day, a practitioner rang me and said, Lilias, you need to go and have a look at this heart rate variability and this mitochondrial work. And I went, what's that? And he told me about a range of supplements that help with mitochondria, and I didn't know a great deal about it at the time, but it sounded fantastic. And I went, mate, I've heard it, seen it, love you dearly. You're a dear friend of mine, but don't do this to me. Nothing's that good. And so I ignored it. And then about 6 weeks later, he rang me again and went, Lilias, you've not done anything about this. I went, no, because it's too fantastic to be true. And I've had my heart broken, and I spent tens of thousands chasing things that are going to make a difference. and I can't go there. He went, "Hum, get in the car, bring Tom with you, and I'll show you." Now, to get in the car and bring Tom with me is a 4-hour journey to where this gentleman lived. But I love him dearly. I've known him for years. I trust him. So, okay, we'll all pile in the car. And of course, the M25 always has massive traffic. So your 4-hour journey turns into a lot more. And that's what you do. And it was very interesting. So heart rate variability is measuring the time between your various heartbeats. And the greater the variation in the timing between the heartbeats, the greater the variability, the healthier you are. And this was a very sophisticated machine. And it was amazing because it was able to measure how much power did he have, where did it go, and what did it do.
Wow.
We did this 5-minute test. I could see that majority, so let's say it's 100%. He had about 75% going into his heart rate and cellular oxygen. So this is the power that the heart is creating to bring oxygen to the cells in the heart. And then that was 75%. Let's say about 20% was going into his body. His parasympathetic, that is resting, digesting and healing. So that amount of power is going into that side of the body's energy. And 5% was going into his limbic system. This is speech, language, communication. So he had 5% going upstairs, which explained why the lights were on, nobody was at home. And I had been spending 5 or 6 years trying to get this brain turned on, and I couldn't. And here was this simple 5-minute test, which basically said, there's nothing going on upstairs because there's no power going upstairs.
Wow.
And then I went, wow, I need to seriously look at this. And so he introduced me to a range of supplements, which I then went on to form a company with, and it was Mitochondrial Rescue. And after about 6 or 8 weeks, Tom took something out of the fridge and put it on one side. When I came down to the kitchen, he said, "Mum, this smells not good. I'm cooking these." So he took some sausages out of the fridge that didn't smell quite right. We had the ability to work this out without me being there, and took another pack out and cooked those instead. Hello, the brain's just kicked in.
Wow.
Suddenly putting his coat on to go outside because it was cold, not without me going, "You need to put a coat on."
Yeah, yeah.
You have to, prompt and cajole and gently show, I don't have to do. And so when we went back 2 or 3 months later and did the same test again, suddenly we had a hell of a lot more power in the brain. I'm going, okay, I really need to get involved with this. And that led on to a whole completely different journey where I studied the mitochondria. So for people who don't understand, mitochondria, if you remember when you went to school, are the powerhouse of the cell. And they create the power. In chemical terms, that's called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And that creates the power for you to run all the resources in your body. And as we get older, it diminishes. But people who are not well and people who are quite often on the spectrum have very little power anyway, which is why people who are not well, in many instances, they don't get better because they don't have the power to get better.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense.
And so basically, scientists are now saying all illness is an insufficiency of power. All illness is a lack of mitochondria. So if you, let's say, for example, you've got a liver problem or a kidney problem or a digestion problem, you will go and take supplements and X, Y, Z and tonics and therapy and what have you to make that area better. Great. And it probably will get a lot better. And you'll go, great, I'm back. But 6 months down the line, when you stop taking that intervention, it comes back again. And the reason it comes back again is because the body never had enough power in the first place to run that area. So now a lot of my practice is focused on, let's measure how much power you got, where is it going, and what is it doing? And if you are...
That sounds amazing. Yes, excuse me butting in. I mean, I've heard about the mitochondria, but I have to be honest, I don't know very much about it. So this is opening up a total new interest for me. And I can understand, like, people, you know, when you're not feeling well, you just haven't got the power, you just haven't got the energy. You know, you think, why, you know, I haven't got that fire, the fuel to keep going. So yeah, amazing. So please carry on. Very interesting.
Well, I mean, if you think about the trajectory of aging, at 16, you are reckless, stupid, invincible. You have the most fabulous body. You tell everybody where to get off. Amazing hair, and that's because you've got more power than you'll ever have again in your life. The reason for that is you have something in your body called carnosine, and carnosine nourishes the body to give the mitochondria the power to do all the wonderful things that it does. The trouble is, when you get to about 24, it drops off a cliff. And so now you don't.
Is that for a woman or for a man?
Both of us, hon. I'm sorry, you're included. So, you know, at 24, it drops off a cliff, and people go, you know, when you're 24, you know, for the men, he was such a wild child. He's so much nicer to be around now. He's calmed down. And the women are no different. You know, we think we're more mature at, you know, 25. We're not reckless and stupid, and we do listen to our elders a little bit more. And then when you get to your 30s, you tend to come out with you think you're mature, you're having babies, you're getting a mortgage, not necessarily in that order, but actually you're aging. And what people don't realize is in their 30s, the body's ability to create Q10 is also now falling off a cliff, and Q10 is required for all of your cardiovascular disorders. And then when you hit 40, you're tired. You tell everybody you're tired. You put it down to children, the job, stress, what have you. And no, you're just aging. And the thing is, carnosine, which has been dropping off a cliff since 24, synergistically and biochemically needs CoQ10 to give it the power to regenerate you. And when you hit 50, you have gone over the top of the bell curve, and you're on that slippery slope of now the body actually doesn't have enough power to regenerate you. And so you have aches and pains and moans and things like that to look forward to. Well, not on my watch. Lilias is here to say you don't have to go through that. And the mitochondrial supplements that we have through Mitochondrial Rescue, in the UK, you can buy them through fullofenergy.co.uk, give you the potential to regenerate at a level that your years of age wouldn't normally allow. And I am 60 in about 4 weeks' time. I don't look it, I don't behave it. I intend to grow old disgracefully or gracefully, depending on my company. And I'm not signing up for the last, 3 or 4 decades of my life being a trajectory of aches and pains and moans. I want to have quality of life to my last breath. And this is why the mitochondrial piece of my world is so incredibly important. And that led me on to traveling the world in a different way, staying in lots of hotels, going all around America to conferences, meeting very, very interesting people. Joe McCullough, who many people will know, I had the privilege of being on stage with him. He went and actually stood on stage and said that our mitochondrial supplements and our heart rate variability device was the most exciting thing he'd come across in 2 years. So I was very, very privileged to do that. And so we did a lot of traveling and speaking, and it's lovely because I got to speak to, surgeons and specialists and doctors, and I would stand up in front of them again. I don't have a single qualification to my name, and you're far more learned than me, but I'm going to do the best I can to tell you exactly how this stuff works, and then you can put your beautiful medical spin on it. And they were terribly gracious, and they were lovely, and they all listened to it and went, "Hon, it's great. We haven't studied mitochondria for many years, so thank you very much for bringing this back into our world." And, we've got many cardiologists and many specialists who are working with us in the States and in the UK with this line, because we all want to grow old with quality. And that put me onto the stage, for want of a better word, talking to lots and lots of people. And I'm very blessed because I quite enjoy doing it. If you ask me to talk to a lot of people, I'm very happy. If you ask me to write something beautiful, I freeze. So we all have our different talents. But yeah, it's been an interesting old journey bringing me to where we are sort of today, really.
Okay, so I've just taken Andrena out of this show there because there's a workman just knocked on her door. So they have no idea that we're doing a live show. Okay, so mitochondria, and I've just put up your...
yeah, that's Joe McCullough. He's probably one of the most successful naturopathic doctors in the States. I think he was, I know he was one of the 12 that was banned by Joe Biden for commenting on how one can heal from COVID-19 and his views on it, which I absolutely salute. And an extraordinary man who's done a tremendous amount of brilliant work for opening people's eyes to how they can help themselves through health and how they can look after themselves without necessarily going down the medical route. But I mean, there are a lot of very eminent, brilliant doctors who are doing that right now. A lot of them are getting censored, unfortunately. But I had the privilege of spending a fair bit of time and getting to know Joe McCullough and some of the other team out there who are doing that work. So, coming from the humble country girl in southwest England to where I've got to today, it's been, a very interesting and a privileged journey. That's Dr. William Paulak, who, again, very eminent guy who travels around the world lecturing. He's written a number of books. He does a lot of work on PEMF work, and the most wonderful man. But I could go on forever with these people. And but yeah, it's a privilege to be speaking to such eminent people who write books and lecture and things like that. Things that I haven't quite yet done. Everybody says I'm going to write a book. I haven't got there yet, but I keep being told by the clairvoyants, Lilias, you've got to write a book, and there's one there that you're just waiting to do. And I'm going, okay, we'll get there.
In which lifetime?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know you mentioned about working with the horses and horse therapy at one point.
Ah, yes. I grew up with horses, and when my mother died, my father didn't know what to do with me, and so he sent me to Germany, where I had the privilege of working with some people in Vinst and schooling with people who are doing high-level dressage. That was the most extraordinary experience, and horses have always been in my life. And when I lived in Scotland for a while, and I read the book The Horse Boy, and suddenly went, wow, I can do this. And I wanted a different direction than what I was doing. So I moved from Scotland down to the West Country again, found a stable yard, found somebody who could help me school and train a load of horses. And what we did was we set up a company called Special Horses for Special Children. And we had tiny miniature ponies to Shetland ponies to ex-race horses to Spanish horses. And we did circus tricks with special needs children, and we double rode with them. And this was amazing, because if you take a child that doesn't speak, the gait of canter on a horse rocks the pelvis and sends cerebral spinal fluid across the brain. And that stimulates the speech and language cortex in the brain. And what we discovered was if we could double ride with a small child that didn't speak, then it would promote speech and language with them. And so it was quite interesting. So these children, we couldn't do it if they were more than about 4 or 5, because their heads were too tall if you had them in the saddle when they had a hat on, and they would come back and knock you out and knock you on the chin. So they had to be quite small. And you had to be quite an accomplished rider to do it and have nerves of steel. So we had a couple of Spanish horses that were very well schooled, and we put the child in front of us, and I'm very lucky, I have a 30 by 60 meter menage or school, and I'd have some young fit people who would run down the length of the school, and another one would take over at the width of the school, and then another one take over at the length. So I would take this horse with the parent standing in the middle, handing their child to me. And I get on this whopping great horse, and they're kind of going, holy moly, I'm not sure about this. And I go, it's fine, trust me. And I have one arm around the child's waist, and I had the other hands on the reins, and with my legs and my butt, I am literally saying to this horse, we are going to go a very gentle walk until this child is comfortable, and from a walk we go into a canter. And I literally would canter rings and rings and rings around this school with various young people running 10 foot beside me, because every now and then the child would go, wow, this is amazing, and they'd be putting their arms up in the air, you know, waving their arms in the rhythm of canter, going, I really, really like this rocking, and then go, Mum, this is fabulous, and swing an arm over the wither of the horse and reach out to the mum, in which case the only thing holding them in the air is my arm, which is at this stage like a rod of steel. And, you know, then the person running beside me was there to support. The horse was well schooled enough that it would stop on the sixpence, and then the child could be given back to his mother, who was generally, you know, relieved, and the child would go, this is great, and then turn back to the horse to go, we want to do this again. And we got a number of children speaking through doing this equine therapy. And there were a lot of children who didn't want to touch the horse. And we found that if we put their hands, and we've just found a really great vegetable paint, if we put the hands in coloured paint, they could put their painted hands on the horse. And so these horses ended up being covered in amazing coloured paint and all designs. And then trying to get their dexterity going, we'd get pipe cleaners, as you can see, in those of you who are seeing the picture. We'd get pipe cleaners, and they would then put the pipe cleaners into the tails and into the manes. So there'd be this whole physical hands-on therapy, which they were doing. What you've got the camera on now is we stencil horses as well. Not all of them were happy with spray paint, but the ones that were, we could get the most beautiful hummingbird designs and things like that. And we, you know, when we did exhibitions at big shows, we would have these horses beautifully spray painted. But when we were at home and we were doing the therapy, you know, it was lovely. So the kids could get messy, they could get, you know, covered in paint. We had children lying on horses, but it wasn't just about the children, it was about the whole family. Mummy was promptly given a copy of Hello or Cosmopolitan or some, you know, glossy magazine that she's not had time in 5 years to actually sit down and turn a page on, with a cup of coffee or whatever she wanted. Daddy was taken generally off with the neurotypical siblings to go and have an amazing time, because they never got to do anything together. And the child that was on the spectrum or had difficulties was taken off with me or with one of my people on the yard, with 4 people, to do some actual therapy with the horse. And so we would treat the whole family, because to me it's not one person's problem. It is the whole family that is suffering. And we would use we had each appointment was about 3 hours. We'd use between 2 to 5 horses during that time. And with every horse, if somebody was on a horse, there had to be 4 people. There's a child on the horse. There'd be somebody either side, because we, you know, people wrap people up in cotton wool. Autism is generally boys most of the time. There are some girls, but a lot of the boys are the people who are suffering. And we play horse football. So we had these giant balls that are about 2 foot 6, 3 foot. And the ponies knew exactly what was going on. We'd play 4 sides. So we'd have 4 autistic children. We'd have people either side of the horses to make sure the child didn't fall off with a hand on a thigh or something. We have somebody at the front leading the horse, running around chasing these footballs, which the horses would kick because they loved it. We had massive goalposts at the end. And we had somebody standing back watching that horse with the 2 people either side and the person leading, because they needed to stand back and see the bigger picture of the other horses around and what was going on to make sure it's completely safe. But we would be hurling down the school at great knots. The kids would love it because they get wrapped in cotton wool and they'd never get a chance to get their adrenaline going and do something fun. And so the whole equine special horses are special children with circus tricks. We had horses lying down, we had them going on pedestals. It was amazing, absolutely amazing. But it became the biggest philanthropic exercise on the planet. And it's a massive amount of manpower. I had about 18 horses and an awful lot to feed and look after apart from all the therapy that needs to be done. And anybody will understand from a human perspective, when you've done a day, you know, for myself, if I've done a day of clients, I need to sit quietly in the evening and just sort of go, whew, the horses are no different. And they also needed to have their own time where they could, you know, be in a field, go for a normal ride, you know, gallop around and do stuff that wasn't where they had to go, okay, I've got somebody very special on my back. And they would know. And therefore, they had their own inherent sense about what that person needed. And, you know, some horses would just literally stand there with their heads in the lap of a child because that's what they needed.
Yeah.
And they know
Beautiful.
they're much wiser than us. But the equine therapy was something I absolutely loved. I felt very privileged. We had about 2,000 families that went through over a 4-year period. And yeah, it was a huge achievement. And I'm going to well up if I talk too much more about it because it was quite a huge passion.
Yeah, no, it sounds fantastic. And yeah, the ability of animals and healing with children is amazing. Excuse me. I know you've got another amazing story of how you survived the floods and how you had, I know you had, well, I'll let you share the story, but I remember seeing your video with the water pouring down the side of your house. Just incredible how you got through that, honest to goodness. So would you like to share what happened there?
I think every cloud has a silver lining for now. On the 17th of June, 2 years ago, a cloud, I mean, I was rewind. I live on a little country lane, 2/3 the way up a steep hill. That's the first thing. I deliberately buy houses on hills because I never, ever want to be flooded. I know too much about mold and what it does. And the simple thing is, well, if you live on a hill, it's not going to happen. Did I have to have the last laugh on that one? Or the man upstairs did, that's for sure. So a cloud parked itself at the top of my hill and dumped 8 inches of water in 3 hours. On my little country lane, where my house abuts actually onto the lane, turned into a 4'6" boiling river. We were all over national news. It ripped the tarmac up for 3/4 of a mile, so we had no road. So I ended up ringing 999 at one point because the water had now got to the windowsills at the front of the house. We had water pouring through the windows at the back of the house. And it was just unbelievable. And I just had to say to the firemen, 999, we need help here. You can't get here because the water is underneath the windowsills. There is no tarmac on the road because I've seen it floating down. And could you just check on us? And if it gets any higher, we'll be upstairs because it's getting to the stage when we're not going to be safe being downstairs. The whole walls of the house were shaking with the enormous amount of water that was going past. And I mean, there's a man who lives down the road from us. He's in his 80s. And talking to him later, we said, well, has this ever happened before? And he's a man who's did his national service in this country, was born in a house across the road from me, lives in a bungalow down the road from me, and probably hasn't, apart from being in national service, left the county. So he said, no, never in all of his, 80 odd years has anything like this happened. And so I don't believe it will happen again. However, that said, it was very interesting because I had the BBC here, I had ITV here, all our new radio and TV companies here, all wanting to interview me. And it was fascinating because they were going, weren't you frightened? And, weren't you scared? And this was drama and fear. And I go, didn't have time to be. We just had to move things. And I had enough people at home that we all worked as an amazing team and did what we could. But the inference, fear and drama sells stuff. And knowing that, I'm a practitioner and what would I be telling my patients to do? So I had to sit down knowing these people are coming going, Han, you've got to take a leaf out of your own book. And so I was very clear to say, weren't frightened, slightly concerned, needless to say, pissed off that my house was being washed away. And so then we had to wash up, dry, clear stuff out, take soggy carpets out, put your best foot forward, make a cup of tea and carry on. But as I pointed out, it's been the best thing that could ever have happened. They say you should move house every 10 years. So I've had the most enormous decluttering, having chucked a load of stuff out. I realized I don't need it. We've lived in a static caravan, me and the boys, so me in one caravan and the boys in the one behind me, for 15 months. I got back in my house the Friday morning before this last Christmas. I've only been in the house, 6 weeks? Having lived in a static caravan for 15 months. And that in itself was quite concerning. Gosh, going from a house into a static caravan, how am I going to cope? What am I going to do with all my stuff? Well, all my stuff's about to come back from storage, and I don't want any of it now because I realize I can manage without it. And it's incredibly freeing to get rid of it. I haven't done it yet because it hasn't arrived, but I intend to do it. But you suddenly realize you don't need all of this stuff. I have lived for 15 months with 3 sets of clothes, literally. And you manage to get a few clever accessories and you can tart things up and, drop them down. And you can live with very little. And I have the most disgusting wardrobe, which I absolutely love. But I've managed without the majority of it for 15 months living in a caravan. So it makes you look at life more simply. It makes you realize what is possible. I have been able to launch another business since I've been in the caravan and do all of my talks, and my Zooms from the caravan. And people have got used to seeing me doing a Zoom on a very cold day with a woolly hat on and several layers of clothing that don't necessarily match. And I go, I am a professional lady, I promise, but it's absolutely freezing. And I've got a little heater under my desk. So please forgive what I look like, but it's the information I'm going to give you that's important. It'll be okay. And they were great. Absolutely brilliant. So yes, it teaches you all sorts of things. And I now have the most beautiful tarmac road outside my house. I have a brand new house. The builders have been exceptional. They've been wonderful to work with. And we're just doing the final bits now. But yes, don't ever think living on a hill, you're not going to get in a flood. And what was interesting is I was then approached by a documentary called It Takes a Flood. And they interviewed me, and they've been following people for 2 or 3 years because so many more people with the weather changing, and we can talk about whether it's real or not. So many people are getting flooded in places they didn't expect to get flooded, and the journey that people go on, because you see it on the national news and gosh, it's awful and lots of water and soggy carpets and clearing up, but you don't see the story that carries on for the next 12, 18 months of those poor people living in a static caravan, living upstairs, the builders who've gone off with the money and not done what they're supposed to, or the people that didn't have the support or the insurance, they didn't have insurance. And there's that whole other story that people don't get to hear. And it is, for some people, devastating. And you have, they don't have the best tools around them. They don't have the best people around them. I was incredibly well supported. The people around me were exceptional. But it's also, you can have a cup half full, or you can have a cup half empty. Yeah, okay, I lost my house for 15 months. It was dreadful. I now have the best house that I would never have had the house that I have today had that flood not happened. I would never have learned that I could live with so little things. And so it's been the most amazing journey for us. My kids have had to get on with each other in a caravan. You put 3 siblings, 3 boys together in a caravan, living in shoe boxes. I put a yurt up in the field because I just thought there are going to be days when they're either going to kill each other, or I need to have somewhere else for them to go. And so I put up the yurt, which ironically is where I spend most of my time. And the boys have got on fantastically well, and they've learnt patience and tolerance. I mean, Tom, with his difficulties, does things differently, and they've learnt to be considerate about that. But it's not easy living in a caravan with 3 boys. So it's been extraordinary, and a journey that, whilst it was challenging, I would not have missed, and has been amazing for all of us.
Fabulous. Fantastic. Right. I think we covered most things along. I know we haven't got to the gel. For me, this magic ingredient, which you introduced me to, well, I know you spoke to me about it in October, and then you spoke to me again in November, and intuitively I knew I needed to take this product. And I've got different things along the way. I've got different instruments and all these different things, and I've tried different things, and they've all been great stepping stones along my pathway, which is what I always share with people to help them. But for me, this little product here, I've only been on, I think it's 9 weeks now. I need to check, but it's about 9 weeks, snap. And I have to say, I can honestly say for me, my hair, now I had my hair cut a few weeks ago, and they've thinned it out, and it is growing and growing. And I've always had a thick head of hair, but now this is beyond thick. It's just amazing. And I just don't know quite how to handle it some days, because I feel like Topsy and Tim. But I mentioned that I had an eye test done a couple of weeks ago, and I could even read the bottom line. I've never done that. I did have my eyes lasered 2010, 11, I think, and they've been good. And they've always said, as time goes on, you will need to maybe get some glasses for reading and what have you. Anyway, I had this test done, and reading the bottom line, she said, I'll see you in 2 years. Oh my gosh, I was just like, wow. So I've lost 8 pounds in weight, which is great, because I was carrying a little bit too much, and I was feeling a bit porky because I'm quite petite. So that was another thing. So it was my eyes, my hair, my nails are coming along, not as fast as I would like, but they are all coming together. I've had a split in my nail for years and years and years, and that's just starting to heal over as well. I've still got a few aches and pains, because I was told I had osteo years and years ago, and since I've been back here, it's been affecting my hips a lot more, which I'm working through. But I have to say, it says you need to be on a minimum for 6 months. So I've sort of got myself the pack so I could do full justice to my body. But I'm only like a third of the way through of that time frame, and I'm just looking forward to other things, sort of just rebalancing itself. And I had the menopause when I was 39, so the same as my mum. I was put on HRT for a short while until I realized what HRT was made of. And anyway, I came off of that, and then I've been doing different things along the way. So I would love you to share how you came about this and the amazing effects that you're finding in the testimonials and the people that are taking it.
This is a once in a generational product, and I am very privileged to have been asked to launch it in this country. When I was told about it, I said, no, not touching it. No, a little bit about what this stuff does, and no. And the person, a bit like the mitochondrial stuff, and the person who was telling me about it said, hun, go and do the research. Things have changed from 30 years ago. And I went and did the research and went, oh my Lord, I really need to get involved with this stuff. So somatropin is the homeopathic name for human growth hormone. Somatropin is a synthetic form of human growth hormone. Let's talk, I think if we talk about what happens with our hormones, then I bring in the product, it will be easier to understand. So very much like our mitochondria, when you are 16, or when you're about 20, you should have a washboard stomach, no hips, no bottom, no thighs, fabulous hair, you laugh a lot, you tell everybody where to get off. And the reason for that, again, is you've got a lot of power in your body because your carnosine's still there, but you've got more hormones coursing around your body than you'll ever have again in your life. And similarly, like the carnosine we mentioned earlier, at 24, the master hormone drops off a cliff. And I think this is the body going, you should have had your children by now. You don't need to be quite so fabulous. You found your mate. So what does the master hormone do? So what it does is it's produced in the anterior pituitary, and it nourishes and stimulates 12 glands to produce over 50 hormones. And that's what makes us fabulous. But the trouble is, when it falls off a cliff, those 12 glands then start to go on a go slow because they're not being nourished and they can't do stuff. So what does this look like? So you're fabulous. I mean, in most people in their early 20s, they look like young racehorses. They all get into size 6 and 8 jeans, you know, and have amazing
and legs
hair.
like Bambi.
Yes. You know, and they never have any stress. Life's just great. And they party all the time. They laugh all the time. And yeah, they see something awful and they just laugh at it. You kind of go, how can you do that? And so if you think about most people in their late 20s, their body composition starts to change. They don't necessarily notice it so much, but they'll develop hips and bottoms. And for women, they lose that very, you know, that slim waist a lot of us had. For the men, they develop the belly. For men, they lose that lean muscle mass, and it's much harder for them to keep that lean, desirable V shape. For women, a lot of them in their 30s, they start to get adrenal and thyroid fatigue, and then start to go onto thyroxine and glandulars and things like that to support it. This is all the body regulating a lack of hormones. And then when you get into your 40s, you're tired. For the women, they can't lose the weight. The men can't lose the weight either. The women many of them feel like they've got a tree trunk for a figure. There's no waist. There's nothing to define them. You know, they can't, the belly goes out, the cellulite comes on. And that's what a lot of people have in their 40s. They lack luster. Life is more serious. Then in the 50s, you've got your perimenopause, which for some women can last 7 years. For men, they go through andropause. They go into their cave. They don't want to talk to people. They get a bit nitpicky about everything. You know, everything's got to be done better, got to be done right. That's what tends to be sort of a lot of the men's journey. And women just go through the 7 years of sweats and headaches and fatigue, and they can't lose the weight, and the secretions downstairs are dried up, and it's horrible. And then they go to postmenopause, and they go through another 7 years of it again. Every single one of those is the body regulating the fact that it has a lack of hormones. Mm-hmm. And nothing gets done about it. And people get told they're moody cows or they're testosterone driven for the young boys. And women lose, 2 weeks of the month when they're going through their periods, or some of them have to have hysterectomies, and the whole thing's horrible. There's very little support out there. And if you go on to HRT, you are frying your glands and shutting them down. If you go on to bioidenticals, the body is incredibly sensitive to hormones being in the blood that it hasn't put in there. So if it picks up a load of progesterone, which a lot of people are taking, or testosterone, it suddenly goes, whoa, where did that come from? That's way too much. We can't regulate that. We're going to shut the organ down. So now that organ is shut down. Now gland. That gland may produce 4 or 5, 6 different hormones, but you've just shut it down because you've put something external into the body it can't regulate. So now with HRT, you're shutting down your glands till they go comatose. With HRT, if you're on it for a long time, you may be frying your glands. None of those things support the body until now we have something that does. And this is why I'm so excited, because in 30 years, there has been nothing on the market that does what this does. And it's going to change so many people's lives. So in this, it's a transdermal, which means you rub it on the skin, homeopathic gel. In it has got 8 botanicals that are proven to encourage the body's own production of the human growth hormone. It also has in it the glandulars of thyroid and adrenals. So now those are going to get supported. And it has somatropin, which is the synthetic form of human growth hormone. And so this has the homeopathic form of somatropin in it. So what is this going to do? This is going to create a vibrational frequency in the body that says to the anterior pituitary, wake up, you used to do this 20, 30 years ago, you need to start producing HGH again. And it does. And over a period of time, the body goes, I remember doing this. And the pituitary can then start to produce its own HGH, which can in turn nourish your 12 glands so they can produce a magnificent array of hormones that you enjoyed in your 20s that made you feel fantastic. Now, what most people don't realize is the more hormones you have in the body, the less cortisol you have. And cortisol is your stress hormone. And if you think about it, particularly women when they get into their 30s, they get a lot more stressy. You know, I'm stressed, everything's stressy. And they go, I can't sleep and I can't do all of this. This is already demonstrating they have a hormonal problem. They have a lack of hormones. And when you give the body what it needs to produce its own hormones and regulate its own hormones, then it's brilliant. So let's look at what HGH does. It enables you to metabolize your own fat and so that you have now, it creates more lean muscle and creates more fat metabolism. So people are now able to lose weight. It increases your muscle without you exercising and enables you to maintain that lean muscle mass. It increases your energy levels. It will increase your cardiac output. It helps your wound healing. It helps your sleep. It enhances your athletic performance. Everything that you enjoy and the magnificent, it works, it controls your cellulite. Now, when I went on it, I am, as I said, just shy of 60. I walk my talk. I'm on my mitochondrial stuff. I did not expect a great deal to change. Well, wasn't I pleasantly surprised? So, in order to demonstrate this, that because I believed it, I saw these amazing photographs. I put my money where my mouth was. I got into a pink bikini, and I measured myself and got on some scales and went and posted this, which I've never done in my life, and said, "This has got to change." You'll see it on Instagram, So Modern UK. And in a 3.5 week period, I went from 67.9 kilos to 64.5. I've not been able to shift weight like that. I mean, that was extraordinary. And I mean, I don't have much extra weight, but with COVID, we'd all, got a little bit more sedentary. My night vision, which I was getting to the stage where I was going to have to go and see the optician because I was finding actually, quite frankly, getting to be dangerous driving at night, no longer a problem. Headlights can come flying at me. Suddenly, that has all just changed. I lost 2 inches off my hips, waist, and bust in a 3.5 week period when I was measuring it, and I took 1 inch off the circumference of my tricep and my thigh. My sleep is amazing. You have the most incredible, vivid dreams on this stuff, like you were when you were much, much younger. So that's kicked in, which has been super. My skin is tightening up. I feel like my tummy has lifted. Not that there was much to lift, but I no longer protrude. I have a flat tummy, which is very nice at my age. So much. Yeah, I don't have any cellulite on my legs at all right now, which is amazing. So what I do is I squirt on the bottle. It tells you to squirt 2 pumps onto your wrists morning and night. You can also put it on the backs of your knees. You can put it in your groin. You can put it on your armpit, the tops of your hands, and the tops of your feet. This is homeopathic. So it stays in the body for 2 to 3 hours. When you understand that, you can get more bang for your buck. I have an alarm on my phone that goes off every 3 hours when I get up. And so I do 1 pump every 3 hours until I've done 4 or 5 pumps. milligrams over a day. The recommended dose is 4. So it now stays in my body for longer, and I'm getting more benefits from that. And I do believe that this is a once in a generational product. There is nothing that I am aware of that stimulates your glands to basically regulate themselves and come back on again. So the fact that we have the potential of having the hormones that we had in our late 20s, early 30s, when we're in our 50s and 60s, is amazing. Absolutely amazing. And the anecdotal reports of what other people have been through who've been on it for 20 years is huge. Now, I see someone who's come up on stage, can they have it for their breast cancer? It is not recommended for anybody who has cancer, because the cells do not know when to divide and when not to. It's not going to distinguish that. So if anybody is in remission with cancer, then it should be absolutely fine. But people who have a diagnosis of current cancer, we do not recommend it for. Anybody who's got a very serious illness obviously should talk to their practitioner or their doctor, or anybody who's on very serious medication. Anybody who is 18 or under 18 shouldn't be on it, because what HGH does, it's the thing that takes you from being a tiny baby to a magnificent adult. So they should have loads of it going around their system. So it is not really recommended unless people are 18 and above. And in my experience, most people don't tend to go on it unless they are in their mid to late 20s and older. A lot of people go in it when they've got, they are clearly having hormonal problems. Women with their cycles, when they've got more, they're finding they're fatigued, adrenal stuff. I've got patients that I'm so excited who have reported back to me, 2 of them in particular, they've had long-term fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. They've had brain fog, they can't move, and they're suddenly going, I've got more stamina. I can, I can go longer during the day. My brain fog's cleared up. They're saying that their lives have changed enormously, and this has been the one thing that has made the difference. We don't know what it will do for people. The body, in its infinite wisdom, will give you what you need, not necessarily what you want. And this stuff works over a 6-month period, because if you can imagine, when you're 40s or 50s, your hormones have now become dried, old, shriveled up raisins. So when you're in your 20s, let's take your adrenals. Your adrenals should be the size of a kidney bean. And right now, let's take somebody who's in their late 40s, early 50s, or my age, nearly 60. They are actually the size of the nib of this ballpoint pen. So you can see how much your glands completely shrivel and disappear. It's going to take a number of months for them to plump up before they can secrete hormones again. And this is why the botanicals are in this product, because they encourage, again, the body to produce its own hormones, and through the botanical stuff. And then gradually, as the hormones, the glands plump up, by about 4 or 5 months, they can start secreting their own hormones again, which is why we say one bottle, excuse me, is not going to make a huge difference to people. You need to give the body a chance to stand on its own 2 feet. And the beautiful thing about this is you're microdosing. You're not doing it every day. You do it Monday to Friday. And then on the weekends, you give your body a break. And you go, okay, let's see what you can do. Stand on your own 2 feet. So you're encouraging the body to do its own stuff. So this is not hormone replacement in any stretch of the imagination. This is rebalancing and re-regulating your hormones. You're allowing the body to do what it does best, and that is create a symphony of hormones by harnessing the body's natural biological functions. And this is why I love this product so much. It is an absolute game changer in health for pretty much anybody who's 35 plus, because anybody 35 plus, quite frankly, has a hormone problem, because the thing that encourages your glands to produce hormones fell off a cliff at about 24. So everything's going to start to be declining. And if you think, so for me, I'm so blessed, because in my practice, I have the Holy Grail. I have the mitochondrial support for people so they can regenerate at a level that their years of age wouldn't normally allow. And now we have the hormonal piece, where we give people the potential to rebalance their hormones and bring them back online so that they can have all of those, that, you know, that fabulous youthful joie de vivre, great hair. I mean, the bedroom department, let's not forget that. It's hugely important. Women, when they get to their sort of 50s, the downstairs department dries up. You know, men have a difficulty with EDF quite usually about their 50s, and there's not quite the same interest. For many people, they report, you know, that when their hormones are regulated, the bedroom becomes the best place to be again. What's not to like there? And if we've all got a spring in our step and we've got our flat stomachs and our six packs back for the men, I mean, some of the pictures that we've got of men who've had, you know, really large bellies, and you kind of look at them in the gym and go, excuse me, hats off to you, mate. Really glad you made it in the gym. And you look at them 3 months later, and you kind of go, wow, yeah, I like what I'm seeing here. What does that do for somebody emotionally? What does it do for them in business? It's not just the physical, it's the emotional confidence. It's the I've got this feeling, and it's the extra spring in your step. That's what your hormones do for you. And to be able to have the potential of bringing them back online is, for me, phenomenal. And that's why I say this is a once in a generational product. I think we're incredibly lucky that it's just been launched in the UK. We know it's been launched in Australia for a little while. It is available. You can see on screen now where you can order it from. And Andrena will be able to give you lots of information about that. It is life-changing for many people, and I would encourage people. But as Andrena said, it takes a good 6 months, and they say there are over 40 benefits with them. There's so many things that you can get from this. You won't necessarily get all of them. Some men, for example, who are a little light on top with the hair, and they want it to grow back. Some people start to get a nice head of hair back again. Some people who are grey start to get their natural colour back. Some people get nothing in the hair department at all. But the body says, actually, what you need is something else, and it will give you a much greater lean muscle mass, or it will help you fat metabolize more, or have a greater stamina for what you're doing athletically, whatever. I don't know. But the body gives you what you need, not necessarily what you want. So this is a massive new piece in my life, in what I'm going forward. It's one of those things that I said at the beginning. The hairs on the back of my neck went up when I really understood what this did. And it's just like, oh, yes, my patients need this. My friends need this. And you don't need to be a patient. Any woman who feels she's lacking luster, can't lose the weight, this might be something to explore. And I've laughed more in the last 3 months than I've laughed in years. I'm a pretty upbeat person anyway, but that is not something I expected. And, your children, my kids are 17 to 25. Kids always need you, but the trouble they get into when they're older seems to be significantly bigger and more alarming than perhaps when they're younger. And I've been able to, so they brought some things to me, and where I'd have gone, what? I've gone, really? You want to try that one again, sunshine? So you start to respond to things in a different way because you've got more hormones. You have less stress in your life. You respond to things as opposed to reacting. And so I think this is great. And I'm really, really thrilled to be able to bring this to many, many people and hopefully put a smile back on their faces.
Definitely. And like, if I just show, I just put a pump on now. So I've just got it on my wrist, like so. And I mean, and you just rub, that's all you have to do. How simple is that? I haven't got to do different attachments or nothing at all. And like, I went out yesterday and I thought, oh, I'll take it with me. And I totally forgot. So I'd gone all day and I thought, oh, drat. But you say about this, I mean, I've always been a dreamer anyway. I always write my dreams down, but my sleep has been much better. I mean, I still have nights where I can't switch off or too much going on, but definitely my sleep is much better. I'm going down in a deeper level than before. And for me, I know I still got a lot of work to do, and I love traveling and going off and having adventures. So, I mean, I've hit the 70 mark maybe 1 or 2 or even 3 years ago now. And it's for me, I still want to stay young, and I want to be mobile, and I want to look young. I'm not ready to be old and grow old gracefully. So for me, this is, and I did have adrenal fatigue, well, probably not long after I'd had the menopause, not knowing all of these things now later down the track, but better late than never, eh? So no, so I'm really excited about this for myself, and I have shared it with a few friends, and they're already taking it. And one friend is already noticing the difference. She said, "Oh my God," she said, "I can," and I could hear it in her voice. I could hear the difference from when we spoke, weeks ago. So yeah, so it's exciting because I'm excited because I know I'm feeling different. And, I'm still addressing a few issues, but
She's frozen. She's back.
So yeah, so I love this product. I'm looking forward, to see how I am further down the track. And I did take a picture at 4 weeks. No, when I first started, 4 weeks, and I got to find another one to see if I can put them together just for my own little portfolio, so to speak. So there we go. Amazing.
And you're never too old to go on it. So we have people who are in their 90s on it, and there are people in China who are 100 doing it. There was one lady who was given a presentation because she ran, not a marathon, but I think she ran a mile, and she was 100. And they said they had all these centennials and much older people who were doing the mile. And she put the fact that she won it and was able to do it with relative ease for a lady who was 100 down to the gel.
Wow, that's amazing, eh?
That is quite something.
Yeah.
So you're never too old to be on the gel and to be gelling. So I think it's becoming a new term in our lives. Are you on the gel yet? Are you gelling? So yeah, good luck.
Right. Okay, well, that's been brilliant. Is there anything else you'd like to share, or any words of wisdom before we close today?
Not really. I mean, just kind of I don't know where to go with that one. I think for people, there is always a silver lining. There is always something in whatever strife or trouble you're going through. You will come out the other side a much better person. You just have to find it. And sometimes you have to be patient and sit with it. And the world is topsy-turvy at the moment, and things are going on that we don't like. But at the end of it, I think we're going to win through. I think there's a lot of new things coming through that are going to be amazing. I think the tools that you have, Andrena, to offer people with the Somaderm are incredible. They are life-changing. If people want to talk to me, they can find me at liliasahmeira.com. For other health issues, I work online. I work out of Harley Street, London. I work internationally. And everybody gets a free 15-minute call to start with. Nobody has to book an appointment. We'll just see if we can work together. But overall, it's been an absolute privilege to come on here with you both. Thank you very much indeed. And I have thoroughly enjoyed it. And let's see if we can make the world a better place.
Oh, that's been brilliant. Thank you for sharing so much knowledge and wisdom and your passion. Just been absolutely amazing. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Okay, Jeffrey.
The YouTube one, this is not coming up.
It might be an Autism's Parent's Journey.
Is it?
I'll give you the link so you can post it later. I'll give you the link for that. If you go onto my YouTube channel, Lilias Ahmeira, Holistic Practitioner, you'll see it in the videos that are available. But yes, it's a very powerful
okay, keep on. It's okay.
Seminar to watch. And I literally
so what I've learned from tonight is mitochondria. So for people in Australia, where do we go to get that product?
I can send it to them. It's not a problem. And there are I think it's available through a company in New Zealand. I'll look that up and let you know. So, because I know getting stuff into Australia is sometimes difficult, but there is a company in New Zealand that is using the same brand, and with shipping costs and customs, I can let you know what that is.
As long as it's under 1,000 Australian dollars, you can come into Australia without it.
Yeah, then I can send it. It depends how much they want to order. But yeah, I send to Australia quite often.
Okay.
I know with the gel, we can get 8 at a time here.
On the first time, you're able to get 8 on the first when you become a member of the club, because it's a bit of an exclusive product. And then thereafter, you can order a pack of 2 as often as you like. But it's only when you first order it that you can take advantage of the 8-pack, which we encourage everybody to do, because it will save them on shipping and so much more.
And then you'll send us the link for people in Australia?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, although can we?
You can use the happyhealthyhormones.uulife.com link. They can purchase in Australia through that link, no problem at all. And I encourage everybody to use it. And if they've got any problems, then they can absolutely come to Andrena or I, and we'll make sure that link works for them.
It's good.
Right,
Appreciate you.
Because we had Jocelyn asking about cancer. If people have got, can they take the mitochondrial product?
Yeah, the mitochondrial product is absolutely can be used in conjunction with a cancer diagnosis.
Okay. Lovely. Thank you very much.
All right. Love you. And what's the time now? Coming up at 23 minutes past the hour in Australia and obviously in the UK as well. I'll let you girls go off for brunch and enjoy your day. Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right. Thank you,
love
everybody,
your
for listening.
Yeah. Pretty brilliant.